Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us in the fourth panel discussion of Two-Way Sculpture 2025. I would like to introduce our moderator tonight, Dr. Baha Budaya. He has many accolades. I'm just going to make it brief for the sake of time to make the most out of the discussion. Dr. Budaya is the chief curator at the Fire Station Artist in Residence in Qatar. He's also a lecturer at BCU and Georgetown Universities in Qatar. And it's all soundtrack. That's great. He is also a writer and art critic. He worked previously at the Institut du Monde de Rêve in Paris, at Mataf Museum in Qatar. His field of research and expertise is modern and contemporary Arab art, particularly Palestinian art, the place where he hails from originally. And I think without further ado, I'll let him introduce our panelists tonight.
Well, thank you, Sebastian. Good evening. First, I would love really to thank Two-Way Sculpture Symposium for giving me this opportunity and to invite me here. And also, I will thank our artists and you guys. So I will start actually by presenting our artists. So I start with Asil. So Asil Al-Yaqoubi, she's an interdisciplinary Kuwaiti artist and writer, working across drawing, printmaking, videos, sculptures, and an installation. She has exhibited internationally at Visual Art Museum in Sweden, Dar'iyya Binali in Saudi Arabia, Furman Gallery in Canada, Karachi Binali in Pakistan, and many others. Her recent projects include Desert X Al Ula 2024, and she was the co-curator for the Kuwaiti Pavilion at the 17th Venice Biennale, Architecture Biennale in Venice. Her essays and artworks have been featured in publications such as Architecture of Territory and Desert Are Not Empty. And Abdullah Al-Mutairi, he's also a Kuwaiti artist and writer and a member of the collective GCC, Art Collective, GCC. He has exhibited internationally at institutions like Sharjah Art Foundation, MoMA, PS1, and Musée d'Art Moderne de la Ville de Paris. His writing has appeared in Journal of Arabian Studies and Asia Art Pacific. He currently works as an external engagement researcher at Al Mawrid Arab Center for Studies of Art at NYU Abu Dhabi. Majid Haqiqi, he is an Irani sculptor, graduated from Fine Art Faculty of Tehran University in 2008. His work draws inspiration from traditional architecture and geometric forms. He explores themes of order and chaos, history and human identity. His Mad Artist Paradox collection reflects his search for structure in chaotic world, while Immortals reimagining historical figure beyond reality in recent years. He has explored the intersection of art, technology, and AI, creating futuristic sculptures. Juan Catido, he is an artist from Medellin in Colombia. He's also a professor at the National University of Art in Medellin. He uses his practice to explore themes of violence, the body, and normality. He approaches art as a way to understand the world, often using humor and absurdity to challenge everyday perceptions. His work involves strategy like ritualizing the ordinary, examining the failure, and criticizing society norms. His work includes painting, photography, interventions, and site-specific projects that remix, and rearrange environments. So, I want to start by saying that when Sebastian told me about that he was invited to curate the symposium of stone sculpture, I was, yeah, that was a great idea, because who's doing this today? I mean, practicing sculpture today is not something common, especially stone sculpture. And we are speaking about I would say, one of the first act of a human being to live. It was sculpting something. When we start to do our tools to hunt. And through time, through civilization, sculptures was or still the mirror of any civilization. It's kind of, the reflection of their history. If you look into the Mesopotamia, Egypt, ancient Egypt, and etc. So stone sculpture, it's challenging as a medium, as a practice. It's not something that artists can really easily do, or even has enough, I would say, enough space to experiment in. It is a very unique medium and very unique practice. Then when we were speaking about the panel discussion and they sent me the title, sorry, I'm just going to open my phone because I have the notes in the phone. And through our discussions with Sebastian, it was this idea of redefining sculptures in contemporary era. And I will really start with this, with the question of what we mean by contemporary sculpture. Is there such a thing called contemporary sculpture? And how we will really defining this, speaking of one of the oldest practice, the oldest material, and very challenging and not easy to experiment, to have, or to come up with really new things outside of the box. So we'll start with you, Asil, if you have any idea of what is it.
This is when they say ladies first.
Of course, we are gentle. Come on.
So what is sculpture, or redefining sculpture?
Defining sculpture, especially as a contemporary practice.
So for me, I think first contemporary as a word is interesting, because contemporary is of this time. So it's always been something contemporary over time, even in the past. So it's contemporary to who? It's to us in the moment, at the present, and then it becomes called something else in the future as something of the past. So there's that sort of cycle there. And then secondly, it's obviously not tangible necessarily anymore. Something that's a sculpture, it's either permanent or temporary. Scale plays a huge factor as well. And I mean, when I studied at Pratt Institute, I did a course in sculpture. That was my background, and video could be sculpture. Mm-hmm. So sculpture is now being read as sculpture within the sort of the framework of what is a sculpture, but doesn't necessarily have to look like a sculpture to be read like a sculpture. So now it's become such a huge field that there is a space for us to sort of question its definition, whether it's going a bit too far or whether it should go even further.
Jumping because I wanted to say something about what you were talking about. I have like this, like I like to work until like the assumption that all art is contemporary art, because art is essentially an experience. Art like happens to you, so it doesn't matter that it's from a different time. That's how you read it. But there is completely it's fair game to get to it, to touch it, as not necessarily in its context, because you have no access to that context. So it's interesting thinking that like all art is like relevant precisely because it comes back through other artists or through artistic discourse or something like that. I think it was like I think it was Kossuth when he kind of was connecting with Duchamp or something, talking about how art is relevant because of its effect on culture, you know? So however sculpture, you know, connects to culture, that's what makes it contemporary. So you can connect with whatever, you know? Also, it happens when we go very far back in time, talking about my, you know, my background as a Colombian. When we talk about pre-Columbian art, which is not really art, it's other stuff. It's object and objectuality that has a connection to ritualistic or other things that are maybe more important than art, I don't know, like something else than art. But we connect with them artistically because that's our connection contemporarily. You know, I think that is an important thing. And I also think that it's an interesting practice that came from the avant-garde and stuff. This idea of like, how do I make this thing that is not really a sculpture or might be a sculpture into a sculpture, like discursively or in a different way. You know, there is a very beautiful piece that I really like from Felipe Ehrenberg, the Mexican artist, in the 80s. In Colombia, there was the colloquium, like the symposium of non-objectual art. So it was like a very interesting gathering of artists that wanted to try to make art that was not an object. And Felipe Ehrenberg, he made his walked sculpture, which was just, he was walking and doing these kind of cryptic images that he claimed to be a sculpture, you know? And he declined any explanation. He declined to say what it was, why was it a sculpture, and it remains kind of in the psyche of Colombian artists, like this idea of why is this a sculpture, you know? You can make it a sculpture. It's like materiality has limits that the mind does not, and the other way around, you know? That's, I think that would be interesting to think.
Thanks, yeah. Abdullah, do you have something to add?
The question of what sculpture is today came up recently with a curatorial duo from Kuwait that Asil and I were advising. So I've been doing research over the last couple of years about the history specifically of sculpture in Kuwait, how it was very a prominent art form in the 60s and 70s, but sort of dwindled out as the decades wore on. So we were mentioning this to this young curatorial duo, and they became interested in what a sculpture is today. So they created this exhibition that was called the Object Salon, and they invited a bunch of young artists to come in and present what they thought objects or sculpture was today. And I think from what we took from that exhibition was that, I mean we already know this, but sculpture is sort of an object that is imbued with meaning more so than it being a carving or something that has been carved out. And today in Kuwait, it's mostly about, I guess, loss through an assemblage of found ready-mades or objects or things like that.
Yeah.
I actually agree with my friends. You know, it's. I think nowadays what we are producing is more or less can be really contemporary, as you said. You know, so because we are going to being more, you know, something more than one object. You know, so we are going to find different messages. You know, so this is, I think. It's not just visual. I mean, visual. Something. Sorry for my English. It's not. Yeah. It's so it's. I think when the meaning and the message is added to the project, it can be changed to the contemporary art. You know, so. That's
No, but still, there is, again, I will go back to this contemporary thing because I think we are, I'm assuming, this is my opinion, there is a misunderstanding in the way that we want to refer to contemporary. I always look at the society, the audience, how they define things, and based on that, I always do my analysis. So today, it's very interesting when you sit with people, you go to visit them in their house, they have a house that is not as anybody else's house, because we know, especially in our region, our houses are are similar. We do have almost the same houses. Always people, when they see something like it is not as usual, they will say, oh, he has a modern house, or it's a contemporary house, or is like a modern car, or a contemporary car, or whatever, and so on, and so on, and so on. I think the question of something being modern or contemporary, people are mixing that with sometime, for example, if you look at the conceptual art, when people look at the painting that it was done today by an artist, they will refer to it as something, old, because it's a painting. So sculpture, they will look at it as something old because of the nature of the, I'm speaking here sculpture traditionally, as we know, as in the symposium. If they see like the work of Majid here, they will look at it and there's like, oh, this is modern. So here, I think there is this misunderstanding of not looking at things because of the time, but because of how they were made. What do you think of that? Maybe Asil, from your experience, I know that you've done a public work also in Al-Ula. We'll go back, but yeah. So what do you think of this?
So I think time is a prescription that's given to us. I think it's sort of a Western construct in the sense that it's linear. So time is past, present, future, and there's no way of sort of navigating this. And it's sort of their way of presenting progress. So it's a very linear form. And that's why I think what Juan was also pointing out is that can't it be something that you go backwards towards, go to the left, go to the right, or be in parallel to? So this idea of this looking like, I don't know what this is the Desert X work. I don't know if this is like contemporary, modern. I don't know how to label this stuff.
Should we really, and the question for all of you guys, should we really come to this idea to label it, if it's contemporary or modern or not?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I'm against it.
No, because this is the big discussion that everybody is doing. I mean, I'm sorry, I wanna. It's like, for example, I give you a very simple example, and it's for you also, Abdullah. It's about when the term appear like Arab art. Everybody's using this term. We don't know what is that.
Yeah, it's problematic.
It's a very problematic, because is it something reflects particularly the Arab identity or the Arab society?
What is the Arab identity?
That's even deeper. No, seriously. So the thing, what you're saying is very interesting about that you don't know what you call it. So, yeah, because I know that you've done something, Juan, in relationship to that. But yeah, maybe you have something to add.
I think there's an interesting conversation I had about like definitions in art. There's a book, a Colombian art. All my references are obviously Colombian artists. I'm sorry, there you can find them. It's easy. But Alvaro Barrios, a Colombian artist, had a book, not very successful one, and problematic and whatever. But he had one conversation that I thought was interesting with Antonio Caro, another conceptual early guy, and he was talking about something that's very it's everywhere, but the way he said it just clicked with me, and was the idea that when contemporary art came, conceptual art came, it was obvious that all art was conceptual. It doesn't matter, if you're doing the Michelangelo doing the David, it was an intellectual effort or something like that. And then, but however, when you get to it, you will agree with it, I guess. But then after that, if I told you conceptual art, you still know what I mean. It's not that, And same thing happens when you think of public art, because all art is public. If you paint a painting and put it under your mattress, it's not a work of art because no one sees it. And also with political art, because even if you do abstract stuff that talks about the political thing that you are ignoring, everything is like that. But then, even though all art is political, all art is public, all art is conceptual, if I say political art, public art, or conceptual art, you know what I mean. There's art. All art is political, but there is political art, And I think that happens with contemporary art. I think people are on the lookout for what's the look of contemporary art, which is more of a market thing. I think people want to buy something that looks new, that looks contemporary. But if you look at it, a lot of the newest art looks like old art as well, or looks like a different. It doesn't need. There is not a look of. There's not an image that we can really, say this looks contemporary. I saw once in an art fair 2 collectors trying to say, I don't know if I should buy this. This doesn't look very contemporary. And I thought it was funny. Like, I don't know what contemporary art looks like. And a lot of practices you see today that are very contemporary look like avant-garde, I don't know, 50s things or whatever. So I think there's a space for it. And I think there's a space for also Latin American art or female art or Arab art. But I think it should not be taken naively. I think there is a thing of you have to know that you're dancing to something else, but you can dance your way to your own goals, I think. So I think like being labeled contemporary or modern or whatever, it's kind of like it's a game, but you can play the game, I think.
Is it because that, again, we were talking about this, is it because this is something that came out of Europe, and we are always referring to Europe or the West as the reference? Should we follow these steps? Should we really be part of it, or should we look into this is my opinion, I think we should look into our way of doing things, into our way of producing our art or presenting our ideas, like far away from the fact that we have to have a reference somewhere, which is the European or the Western, art, and this is how I see it. So for this, Majid, we were speaking about your work, and when you present to me the project, and this is another project, and I was thinking, how can we call this a sculpture? And because there is also something about installations today. We do have artists that they do installations. We know that there is a lot of thinking about that still, and this is what is interesting about the practices today, that they are in a way that we are still thinking of them, we are still examining them, we are still talking about them all the time, as we don't define them yet. They are not like, for example, we know there is the paintings, there is sculptures, these are the classical one that we know, but the practice today is totally different. So how you can define this as a sculpture if it comes to work like this?
Actually, this collection, when I design it, it depends on the place that I present it. For example, in the gallery, it looks like one object because it doesn't have any relation to the space. So, but when I put it, for example, in South Korea, in the outside, in a different places, not gallery, I found it more different. In that place, it changed the space also. So I think also I feel also the audience has a different experience, with my project when they see it in the gallery or not, So I think it depends on the place that can change the meaning, For example, in this collection, as I see how it can change with the nature, with the light, with the shadows, and how can people connect, not only physically but also emotionally, they try to make another connection, So I think this is it changed my idea. So that is why I think in my idea, if I put them, for example, the different place, like for example, if I put it in the desert, it's kind of has another meaning, So it can be effect on the nature, and the space can change it completely, the meaning. And also, for example, when I put it in a really heritage building, a traditional building, it's another thing. So I try to find these connections. I think for me it's really important, for example, the space. And after that I can tag it, is it installation or is it, a sculpture. So I think in the gallery I didn't found it like
So you mean it can change from according to the place, maybe the time, or the environment that the artwork is there.
Yeah.
Because no, I do agree with this, because it's really there is always this kind of referring to what we've been reading or hearing from others about labeling artists. For example, if you look at Mona Hatoum, some of her work, these homebound work, that they were extremely big, these huge, massive objects, they were referring to them, and this is Mona Hatoum's sculpture. And look at that, and it's but what did she sculpt in them? None of these objects was first made by her, this is how we practice today. There's no problem with that. This is how is art today. You have an idea, and there have people helping you, even with your work here, guys, you still have this, but it's still calling it sculpture. That's problematic, in my opinion, because again, the question of where is the limit between what is this object as a sculpture and what is the object as an installation. And yet an installation itself, I think, is also problematic, because we didn't find the right way to call certain artworks. So we came up with these, describable, or this kind of like a description. An installation is not. It's kind of like you are describing something when you say the word an installation, because it's a combination of many elements, and you do work. What do you think, Abdullah?
I was going to say that I think the artists themselves typically don't care about the labels. I mean. No, because I was going to say that, I mean, the question of labels comes in when you're historicizing something or marketing something. I think the artists themselves are concerned with the sensation or the feeling or the idea of something, and they're more intuitive with what they're working with. Because, I mean, you could say this about sculpture, but also about digital work, about a lot of different things. Because I think artists are just intuitive with the medium that they're using, and then the labels come on later, or at least for good artists.
No, but also it's good. No, sorry, but to this, it's very important what I said, because also there is the question of the responsibility of the artist. Because if the artists don't care, which is they do have the right, I respect that, what about if they do care about how people will look at their work? The perception is very important.
I know you mentioned this earlier about the need to explain things to an audience, and I feel like personally, I think there's too much explaining. And I think that you don't have to spoon feed people. No, I'm not saying this is what you said. I'm saying that.
I didn't say explaining. I will come to that.
But I think a little bit of mystery and even confusion could be, useful, or not useful, but interesting.
Interesting, of course. No, about explaining, I didn't mean we have to explain to people. No, we have to take the responsibility to understand to whom we are presenting our work. And this is something very important, because we cannot just assume that whatever we do, this is my opinion again, whatever we do should fit and should be understandable easily by everybody. No, there is a big responsibility on us, not only on you as an artist, but also on us as people working in the field. Don't forget that art has been always something very elite, something very reserved for certain, and sadly this is even the case today. And then we have the market, we have the institutions, we have the curators, blah blah blah, all these factors that plays a very important role. So the perception is important.
Yeah. I think in the region, at least from what I can tell, is that most people that are interested in art, they fulfill multiple roles. So they're the artist, they're the curator, they're the historian. So I think with that, it becomes very complicated to explain a work.
Yeah.
And I think it takes time, and in order to create labels or terms that are actually relevant to a region or to a generation, there needs to be people that focus on that only, and not having to be the artist, the face, the brand ambassador.
All of them.
But also, speaking of the Westerns, isn't this a very typical lexicon? Isn't this a language? If we look at how artwork is labeled, first it's the title, and then it's the date, and then it's the medium, and then it's the scale, and there's a very specific prescription to how art should be labeled and why. And it's maybe this is also something we should be questioning.
I mean, everything is under question.
I think I was like, I have something to say. Yeah. No, I was thinking of a couple of things. One is like, but I think like artists. I had like one conversation once, like in the university. Like it was a joke, but I meant it. I was like, when you have like an interdisciplinary work sometimes, and there's an artist, there's like the perception that the artist is like a toddler or like a cat, that you give it a toy and it plays with the box, you know? And I think there's a thing like, there's a place for you to try to insert yourself within a lineage or a tradition if you call whatever you want a video, or you call whatever you want a sculpture, because you want to be connected with that tradition and you want it to be perceived that way, you know? It can actually help you, maybe, I think, kind of keep some of the mystery, you know? Like there's a nice reading of the, you know, the Yves Klein jumping in the void photograph, the photo montage. There's this guy talking about performance and talking about how this piece has always been regarded or thought of as a performance, even though it's not a performance, it's a photograph. It didn't happen, no one jumped, you know. Well, no one jumped to their death in the street. So I think this kind of plasticity of your mind, you know, this flexibility or this kind of, you know, the elasticity of thought is important. So like you are dealt these rules, and you don't have to accept them, but they're there, and you can ignore them, but you can also play with them. I think that's important. So it's like, I don't remember the name, the complete name, but there was like in this like book of like, it was called New Media Art, but it's all very old because it was like this .com art in the early 2000s. There was this 16-year-old who tried to sell his body as a sculptor, as a sculpture in eBay or something. It said like, oh, it's a male, whatever, 1 meter, 70, so many kilos, whatever. And it became part of the artist discussion. Like, this is a sculpture. You don't want to think about that. But then it's an interesting thing because this goes into culture. This goes into art making. It doesn't have, you don't have to like it. It's not like a quality thing. But it is part of the discourse. So I think, like the field is there to play, and there are some lines. And you are not tied by these lines because you don't want to, maybe I don't, like there's artists that have played with the, you know, making the work, whatever they want. They make it in the little tag that says what your work is, you know? You can use that in like direction, exactly, yeah. Like you can say that your work is that. Like, we're not talking about our works, but actually, like there was a piece of mine who's like, he's just spinning around here, which was, no, the yellow thing. It was a public sculpture, but I decided to make it a monument. They didn't say make a monument. It was just a public sculpture, and I said, oh no, it's a monument. I want to make a monument to something, which is a value that I think is important. It was like the monument to protests, and like it was just like a piece that looks like a outdoor gym, but all the messaging in it talk about how in Colombia, protests are a constitutional right, and they're written there in the Constitution, you know? So this is like the monument I made. And I was like, okay, it's not a monument. I called it monument, and I made it a monument. That's the title of it, you know? So that's kind of like what I mean. Like, it doesn't mean like, oh, so what kind of monument is this? You know, you don't have to play by those rules, but they're there. And they are, like the line in the sand is like, it's a rope if you wanna, you know, you can jump on it if you want. But I think it's a material, it's a valuable material. So
it's in a public space.
Yeah, definitely.
I think you can hear me, guys. Sometimes I don't have to use this. It's okay? Yeah, I think it's working. No, but also it's very interesting because the responsibility on us when it comes to the work that's going to be in a public space, it's more serious than any other responsibility, because it's the only place and only time that anybody, anytime, all the time can see the work and can read it differently. This is our big responsibility. So, Asil, you've done something in a public space in Al-Ula. I will go to that. And it was very interesting because I'm interested to understand more about how people looked at it.
So it was really popular locally. I was getting stopped a lot saying, are you Asil? Are you the one that did the melting elephant? It's amazing. It looks exactly... It's not supposed. I mean, it's gaining inspiration from. So it's about desert varnish. So all of these striations that you see in the desert that drip. So it's a phenomenon, and astrophysicists and scientific philosophers are like confused how for 2,000 years we don't know what this material is, and now we found it on the moon and Mars. So it's even more of an enigma. But it's all over Al-Ula, and so this is supposed to memorialize it, sort of hold it in spirit, but also feed off of the way people locally refer to specific rocks, like Jabal al-Fil, like the elephant rock, or, you know, and there was like, oh, do you see the face? You know, we call her the lady, or, you know, and there was like all of these different names, but then structure played a role in this, in terms of, can it stand? It's 6 meters tall. Like this rock down there is taller than me, just like, it's almost taller than me, to give you context. So, there were a lot of things that needed to be worked around, but they were like, they're like, there's a lot of art we don't understand, but with this one, we understood that you are trying to highlight the nature of our place, and that you are bringing the beauty, and you're not competing against the landscape, and this is something that we could really read, but then you would get like, you know, the VIP tours and stuff like that, and they'd be like, what's it made of? You know, rather than, you know, like Abdallah was saying earlier, like, what is the emotion? What is the feeling? It's more like, what is this? You know, and tapping at it, and what is it made of? And I'm like, but there's that mystery here in it too. Like, do you really need to know? Like, it's glistening in the sun. It looks like it's wet, but it's not. And it's like, don't touch the art for that reason. Yeah. and so that really was eye-opening for me. It was like, it's the idea of...
Maybe they were trying to ask if it was a good investment, if it would last a couple years.
There were flies fossilized in it. You know, there's like so many interesting moments, because it's 250 kilos of resin being poured on the structure. So then again, it's like, is this sculpted? Is it not sculpted? But I didn't pour all the resin. I didn't make all of the work. I was part of it. But, you know, but then there's this imposter syndrome that comes with that as well in this day and age. I feel that as an artist, I'm like, I'm not making my own work sometimes, you know? So I don't know. It's so that also feeds into the way audiences perceive my work. And I was like, am I fake? Am I real?
I think also Majid has something to say about this, not making your artwork. And then I will come back to this, because there is something I'm interested to discuss more about it.
Yeah, this is, when I saw your sculpture also, it was really interesting for me when I see you install it in this landscape, you know, and it's my dream to install one sculpture in this kind of landscape, especially in desert. And sometimes I ask myself, you know, it's why I choose this place, you know, because why I am so interested about to make a sculpture in kind of this place. But for example, when I think about how can I imagine this sculpture in Tehran, you know, in the 60 million people moving past, and too many cars, buildings, many passengers, you know, many. So I think that is why I try to escape from this area, because it's like for me as a sculptor who works really many urban sculptures, I try to escape of this many things, you know, to find a calm place. And I think this place is really strong, you know. So when you install this sculpture in Tehran, or you can install it in the desert, in the really beautiful landscape, quiet, really one color, you know, is really simple shape. I think it's really all the artists is looking for this opportunity, you know. So. And as I know, in China, they made it they have a very big desert, and they start a few years ago to install really huge sculpture in this, and they are going to prepare desert like a very special place in future. And my wife also has 2 big flowers, like 15 meters each one, you know. Wow. So yeah, it's like a dream, you know, to see this kind of when you see these flowers in the desert, it has another meaning. And she made it exactly the same in Iran, in one crowded city, you know. Yeah. It was totally different.
Because here, scale doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're like, what is scale there? Yeah. Everything is so huge that this looks
so
like an ant on it from a drone.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, that is why I think this space is really. I really sometimes I don't have this opportunity, but I imagine and I try to visually.
Inshallah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, but wait.
I
Yeah,
wish.
that's good. But also there is something, Asil. This sculpture, it was temporary, disappeared, it's gone.
Yeah, it's in the kib.
I know. I mean, what is it? How come? And what is your feeling, and all of you guys, seriously, about this? When you do an artwork and you know it's going to be temporary for like 2 weeks, and then you wait. Like somebody in the will give you the opportunity to discuss that. Trust me. But like we see this practice. There is a lot of going on in this matter. Like a lot of artworks that are being produced, they stay there for a very short period of time, and then they meant to go or to disappear, to be destroyed. So what is the impact? Are we just here just to look into their photos or the images that they left behind, or to show our people like, look, I did this or I saw this and that's it? Isn't it important to feel and to have a connection with the artwork and, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was hoping it would take more time than the couple of months, because I was really hoping to see time play its role on the piece. Like, this is resin, so how will it pigment and how would it survive the environment, and will it survive the environment? Actually, there was a flood that a lot of the works were actually washed and destroyed from the heavy rainfall that was happening there. And everyone assumed mine would be the first to be destroyed, but it's literally became one of the rocks, you know. So, and with the sand and everything, the particles started to just really fuse with the whatever sticky parts of the resin there were, and so it was matting almost. So there was this. I wanted to document that sort of like nature versus artificiality, and our idea of trying to mimic the environment and trying to make something that looks like it, but it's not. As hard as we can, we never will. But then, like you said, all I have is these images, as many images that I could take, and you still can't, even with people in these images, really understand or experience these works, all of them, unless you're there. So. Yeah. It's either you're there or you're. It's almost like with the whole like, if I don't post this image, then I don't exist. So it no longer exists. Yeah.
Okay. So. Well, I know there is a lot to speak about, and there is so much topics. But I see that some people in the audience are really interested also to ask questions, so I will leave it to you guys. If you have any question, and it's your turn now, and yeah, for all of them. Or even if you have any opinion, I'm not going to be somebody who just expecting questions. Opinion is very important, please, but don't do it like a lecture.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. What I would like to say that the stones that we are making here, at least, is going to live 500 years, maybe 1,000 years. Don't you think it is long term for human being to say temporary?
The question is for who?
I mean, yeah. I mean. You were saying that the artwork is not last long, as I can understand. Am I right?
No, I said some.
Some, okay. I offended.
The question of having an artwork temporary. It is some artists that practice for the event, or for the purpose, whatever it is, then it will go. This is what the artists at the beginning, like from beginning, this is their intention. So my idea is like, what do you think of that? Is this also something we can include it in the art practices or not? But also, is it the concept, and this is the other side of it, is it the concept of having a temporary artwork for 2 weeks is the artwork itself?
I mean,
conceptually speaking.
I mean, if we, firstly, I can say that I cannot decide the art as with its exhibition space, exhibition timeline. Art is kind of what I can say flux. It's inside with this object that I created with the artist and the audience, let's say. But it's lasts long, not just a period of time in the displaying gallery or exhibition place. What I can say is, I'm not like putting in this box of limitation exhibition period as an art, let's say.
I was going to say, I think it depends on the artist, because some artists seek immortality through making work and want their work to last a long time. Some artists just want to make a statement, you know, so it really depends. Plus, you know, with time, a work can lose its meaning, lose its context, the signifiers, to understand that work, so.
Hello.
We'll come back.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
A little thing before. I'm sorry. I know I speak too much. I'll be fast. I want to say, like, normally I'm more comfortable doing short-term stuff, like doing, like, actually applying for a stone symposium was like, okay, do I want something that's gonna last so long? You know, that's kind of intimidating for me. Like, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want it. But I think also, like, the same thing, like, as all art is contemporary and all this stuff, I know I'm repeating myself, but there's a thing of works throughout their life span change in and out of ways. You know, they are not read the same way. They don't mean the same. So even like these things that last forever don't really last forever in the culture because they are seen in different ways. That was what I wanted to say.
My name is Ella. I'm not an artist, but I appreciate the arts. And I'm going to say, maybe this is a little bit philosophical, right? It's not a question, but it's just food for thought. For me, as a person who appreciates the art, sometimes I get sad about the idea of this art piece is going to be lost after a certain amount of time. It's just, and it triggers this concept of attachment. And I have a lot of artist friends, and there was also this constant conversation about the idea of permanence and temporary. And a lot of artists say that they produce their work and destroy it because it's like, once it's done, the expression is out and the point is released, and there's no point of keeping it, kind of. There's no attachment to permanence, right? The concept that everything is temporary in a way. But also, there are a lot of pieces where I was genuinely sad, and I feel mostly this way. I live in Riyadh. Annually, we have this light festival. And mostly this is where it's triggered the most for me as a person who appreciates the art, especially public art. It's like you worked so hard and there was so much investment put into this piece. And the concept that after a certain number of days, it's no longer there, you don't see it again, you don't engage with it again, and it's gone forever, and all you have is this photo of it. It's just so sad, maybe, for me, as a person who just always is on the receiving end of art.
Roland Barthes said it with the photography. When you take a picture of someone, that means they're dead, like it's death, basically. So when you document art, it's basically, why are you documenting it? It's because it's leading towards its death to some extent. Not always, but yeah.
Hello, I have a comment about that, Ala. I'm Reem, and I'm also part of the TWIG team. Yes, some things are temporary and like they were made for such a reason, but I also think that the beauty of art is also about encounters, like just creating encounters. I mean, we all live a very fast life. This is how things are right now, you know? So especially with public art, I feel like part of it is creating this space of like just encountering something new. And maybe that's it. That's the meaning of it, or that's the meaning behind it. It doesn't need to be like complicated or like move somewhere else. It's just about creating space for encounters. Yeah.
But we saw it. We saw it.
No, guys. Guys.
I think I thank her that she did this beautiful artwork because I'm Khalid Zaki. I only works Jurassic stuff.
Jurassic stuff. What is that?
You know, stone, bronze. You know,
okay.
All this. But I'm happy just to see this. And also, it happens to me in different way. In my studio, while I'm modeling, sometimes I make a model which is not 100% satisfying me. And I take photos, and for a reason or another, I just destroy it, or it destroys by itself. And later on, when I see it, I find that it was really beautiful, and it's a pity that I destroyed it. But I lived the moment. I mean, I did it, I saw it, I lived this emotion, and not necessarily that this piece should last with me, but maybe it is still inside me and somehow in my unconscious. Also, I'm sorry if I talk a lot. Yeah. Also, in the world, there are a lot of marvelous things. We know that it exists through photos, documentaries. We don't go to the ocean, in the depths of the ocean, to see the real octopus, and we see all these kind of fishes. But in National Geography, we enjoy and we know that it exists. It exists, but we'll never go. We shall never go at that depth to see these things. So the power of the photo is not few. And as I said, that I'm the one who produced things that last. But of course, when I see something like this, I feel like, wow, it's a piece of art, and I'm happy to see it. And yeah, if it exists, maybe I can find the opportunity to visit and see. But if it is not there, at least I'm enjoying, I know that it happened, and I'm enjoying this kind of experience that she lived, and the courage to do something like this. This is what I think. Regarding to contemporary and modern and old and dead, I just express myself through my art. And there are also people, their job is to talk and to classify and to criticize and to make somebody up and somebody down. But one day, all of us will just pass away. And what remains is art. Yeah. And a lot of other generation will come, never know any one of us, and have no problem or position against any one of us. They will see these works or photos and will talk, regardless all the fight we have. Because it's like, in fashion we accept that you have a very narrow pants, and then wide, and then short, and then long. And it comes back and comes back and gone, comes back, and we accept that it's going and coming, it's going and coming, because there is industry. But as art, our work is always limited. So there is no interest to make it bigger than what we have now. So I think what we should do is sincerely enjoy ourselves and be sincere in our messages.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I can do.
Yeah, I mean,
Otherwise, I just leave it and go for all these philosophic conflicts.
Yeah, hello, I'm Birgit Kauer. I'm also part of the Redefining Sculpture Symposium. And I make stones, work with stones, but I also love to make ephemera and participate artwork. And I like it very much that you made it just for a certain period, and it's all these ideas from growing and dying, and this is wonderful to have it. And what I like in this ephemera and non-permanent art is that it's always more this aspect of happening, that the people are coming and they know that it will be only for a certain time. And my experience is that you come and it's like a party, like a fest. You make guided tours. All your people, they must come now and see it, and not later. And so it's a group. It's more like a theater, like a performance piece. And this is what I like to create community also in a sense. And this is what I like in this non-permanent art. This I want to add this thought.
Thanks. It's very interesting because it's most of you as an artist are giving your opinion about this practice, but also, is anybody has any question? I mean, come on. I said questions, and also if you have an opinion, it tends to be just opinions. It wasn't me who's like guiding.
I have the mic, so let's say something.
Oh, you have the mic. My God. So
Ali Al Hamoud. I'm one of the sculptors as well. I just clean a little bit. Do I look white? On temporary art, food is art. Let's face it. And food is not meant to be looked at. It's rather swallowed as quick as possible. And it's really art, and that's the beauty of it. And so we cannot say like, let's eat boring food because it doesn't last. So temporary art makes an impact, and in my opinion, it's a bigger impact than the everlasting art, because it's meant to be lived and looked at and felt as much as our senses can take in that short period. It's there. Thank you.
Thank you.
I tried to be quick.
Okay. No, you were perfect.
I still have some more.
No. No, any more questions or?
I think Majid, you wanted to say something.
Majid,
sorry.
Yes. I'm sorry, I don't.
It was about, I was going to tell one story about our first symposium in Tehran. It was 2005 and very avant-garde symposium, I tell that. And very interesting, one English artist came to that symposium, and he made many beautiful sticks and perfectly finishing, and he installed everything. And after put the chair on top, and at the end of the symposium, he broke it. And in the lecture, it was very nice. He was, and it was nothing, at the end of the symposium was nothing to remain for his result, So because he was going to make something and after distort it. And in a lecture, it was very interesting when one day he made a lecture about his idea, and he talked about that, okay, he showed us, he made big installation about 300 meters in the gallery, many sticks, and after one day he started to break it. So he started to say, okay, he showed us I was a student, and it's very interesting for me. And he showed us a very nice sculpture, a stone sculpture, and he said, it's beautiful. And I said, oh yeah, it's awesome. And he started to say, okay, but he cannot stay forever. And okay, it was a big question for us, and he was going to tell us, okay, I can put it in the space and I can ship it into the space, but it will not stay forever. So nothing is forever. And he started to make this installation. I think this kind of project that you did is like, the process is more interesting than, exactly.
And it's like the enigma of the desert varnish, the sculpture became an enigma too.
Exactly, and it's also changed too, it's kind of a sculpture that always change in enigma, I mean.
I want to say that something about that, also your project that I think it's interesting, your project. I just realized my own accent, I'm sorry. So I just realized, I'm thinking about, like you are working with the idea of geology and like this impossible to understand time frames for a human, and you made it you made a temporary work. So it's kind of like a bridge between the environment and our experience as, finite beings. So I think it had to be temporary in that sense, like, because then it gives you like it makes it like you were talking about scale, but like in a time scale, it makes sense. It would be weird if you just change the topography forever and then just like, oh, it's another rock, like there's from rocks. But now you have like a thing that is an experience, and it can like maybe a person can understand how these natural things exist because they realize something throughout seeing your piece decay. I think that would be like a very important dimension of the work.
I have a question. I do. I do also sculpture. The question to Asil that, okay, we talked a lot about temporary work and it vanished so fast. But my question to you, if there was a way that you make such a beautiful piece like this in a way that it may last longer, would you do it, or you say, I don't care?
No, I wouldn't do it, because the point was biomimicry and our inability to biomimic. So it was sort of a human versus nature. The 3D printed material which the resin was poured on was biodegradable PLA. So it was meant to, I was curious to see, would the resin be intact while this was the biodegrading inside, and would it cascade into pieces? And so for me, it was sort of like this timeline. I don't know how long it would have taken, but I don't think I would want it to be a permanent. It's not what I was aiming for, as a permanent forever sculpture.
No, okay. This was a question.
Guess what? I have a question. I want to kind of go back to a situation that I found that was a bit anachronistic here. Asil was talking about the imposter syndrome, and while sitting in front of a whole bunch of dusty artists who held a grinder for 8 hours a day for several weeks in a row. So I wanted to kind of tie in with the idea of contemporary, non-contemporary, and some biases and tropes that appear associated with these things, and is the idea of whether making your own work is an obligation, an expectation, or is a right the artist has. There is a Colombian artist that says that making his own pieces is a right the artist has, and he chooses to renounce. And he's like, I don't have no interest in Nadine Ospina. Like, I'm not interested in doing that. Like, because he practices in very different mediums. So he makes inflatables. He hires an inflatable company to do better inflatables that he will ever do. And whenever he wants to do plastics or ceramic, he just finds. So I wanted to, hear from your particular places of practice, when I guess Juana, a conceptual artist who's being turned into an actual artist, Majid, who kind of navigates both worlds, and Asil and Abdullah, who have research-based practices and have worked with you know, the big infrastructures of art manufacturing, like the piece Abdullah did with GCC, the massive witchcraft melon at the rooftop of the Whitney, and the seals, like, well, melting elephant, which we renamed tonight. Like, I want to hear like that tension. I'm not looking for a definitive answer, because I don't really care much about answers, but these questions, I think it's an interesting tension to explore in this idea of the contemporary context, which also knowing that Michelangelo also had like a whole bunch of people working for him, and you know, like, but today is often demonized, that these infrastructures of production.
I will answer first because of the you asked me first, so I'm going to answer first. I take it the same way that I was talking about with the rules of modernity or labels and stuff, and I say it's a signifier as any other. So like if I make it myself, because like if I let my assistants do all the work here, it's going to be better than if I do it. But I'm doing it because I want it to be. Like I'm trying. I found a way to use the grinder, so it's like it's more of a expressive way. So I did like these expressive lines. You know, if I told Khaled El Hussein, my amazing assistant, like, oh, do these parallel lines, they would be parallel and perfect, and then I would be staying eating pastries and coffee even more than I am now. But I like that it has my hand on it, and it looks like there's an expressiveness to it. And I also like it's like my beginnings as an artist, where I started as a painter. I wanted to be a painter. So I'm thinking this piece from a painter's perspective. So I want that. But when I was doing like some soldering of a 7-meter tall like a metal thing, I have no wish at all to just do it myself. I think it is one of the weapons in the armory of an artist, your own hand or someone else's. I think it's irrelevant, really. Like, it's just like if you choose to do it. Also, you know, like if you are a very good artist, that is like if you're a master with a grinder, then you do it best because you're the best, you know. But it doesn't mean that if you just use your mind and someone else executes it, it's not worth as much. I think it's really the idea what matters.
I was going to say, it really depends on the artist's practice. With GCC, we were very interested in power and in visibility. And I think sometimes when you collaborate or make visible certain things within society, that can be interesting and part of the work. I mean, for example, we commissioned a Thai painter to paint us as royals, and it was someone who painted royal portraiture for a living. And I think making that visible and what that statement would be in an exhibition could be interesting and sort of enlightening to events happening. So I think it can be part of the work, who you're choosing to collaborate with, how you choose to collaborate with them. It could actually strengthen the work than it just being a painting in itself or a sculpture.
For me, it's an ethics and moral sort of quandary. It's I like the idea of co-authorship. So if, let's say, like this piece, I credited every single person in every single company that I worked with and listed them by name, because I just, yes, it's my idea, but it wouldn't have ever been realized without their expertise in the matter and their diligent hours and time and effort. And so for me, it's this, I feel weird saying it's by me when it's like by a lot of people, and I understand that there's this whole system behind that. But it's, I feel like credit is something that I don't mind giving, and it should be given where it's due, especially in collaborations. And so for me, this is considered a collaboration because I felt like it was. It wasn't like I was distanced from it. It was like there was a lot of impromptu improv, like things that we had to do, that I feel like this is somewhat of a collab.
Actually, yeah, my gallery, for example, asked me many times you should to have a big factory and you should to produce more in a year. So and it's not necessary to make it everything by yourself. Always they are like talking like that. Also in Iran, I know some really famous painter. They tell me, okay, man, this year I made just 30 painting. It's not enough. We have to make. And I see in his studio, there are so many people are working in different parts. Yes, it's like a big factory there. But honestly, I really appreciate to work by myself, and I made it. Maybe I can make just 4 or 3 in a year, But this is I really enjoy the process more than everything. So. As my experience, I really like to be involved in the process and do it by myself, and I really enjoy that more than the result, Yeah,
because the level of involvement is important. I mean, you could be involved in a tiny little thing or big thing, but then because not everything you can do by yourself. There is things in when we do like produce artworks, whether it's a sculpture or an installation or anything, you cannot. You just need to have not only a human being to help you, but a machine to produce that.
Yeah.
No, that's understandable. I think it's fair enough that we know. That you know where is your capacity to do things and what is your limit to do them or not, and that's it. This is an involvement at the end of the day. Okay, I think thank you very much. I hope.